I spent 2 years arguing with my next-door neighbor about his dog, barking all night last week. Animal control found my neighbor had been dead for months, and there was no dog when I moved into my small bungalow on Maple Street. I was thrilled to finally have my own space after years of apartment living. The neighborhood was quiet, the yard was perfect for gardening, and my neighbors seemed pleasant Pernton, all except for Mr. Callahan next door on my very first night. It started turned to dog barking, not just occasional woofs, but persistent, desperate barking that echoed through my bedroom walls from midnight until dawn. After 3 sleepless nights, I knocked on Mr. Callahan's door with a plate of cookies and my best neighborly smile. "I hate to be that neighbor," I began when he answered, "but your dog kept me up again last night. Is everything okay with him?" Mr. Callahan peered. A thin, elderly man with pale blue eyes stared at me coldly. "I don't have a dog," he said, and shut the door in my face, but the barking continued every night. Sometimes it sounded distressed, other times angry. I began leaving notes in his mailbox, then calling in noise complaints. When police officers visited, Mr. Callahan would refuse to answer or claim he heard nothing. "Old man's probably deaf," one officer suggested. At neighborhood meetings, other residents confirmed they'd heard the barking too, but no one had ever seen Mr. Callahan walking a dog. "He's always been strange," explained Mrs. Weber from across the street. "Lived here 40 years and barely speaks to anyone." After a year of disrupted sleep, I installed a sound machine, then industrial-grade earplugs, and finally expensive soundproofing panels on our shared wall. Nothing helped. I could still hear that dog pert, sometimes whimpering, sometimes howling pert, night after night. I became obsessed. I set up a camera facing his yard, hoping to catch footage of the mysterious dog, but it never appeared. I researched noise ordinances and animal neglect laws. I started documenting every barking incident in a detailed log that grew to fill 3 notebooks. Last week marked 2 years since I'd moved in. I noticed Mr. Callahan's newspapers piling up on his porch and realized I hadn't seen him retrieve his mail in days. Concerned. Despite our contentious relationship, I called the non-emergency police line to request a one-nest check. 2 police cars and an animal control van arrived within hours. I watched from my porch as officers forced entry into Mr. Callahan's home, then quickly retreated, covering their faces. The animal control officer never even went inside. Later that evening, Detective Ramirez knocked on my door. "Mr. Callahan has been deceased for approximately 4 months," she explained gently. "There was no evidence of any animal in the home, either recently or in the past. No food, no bowls, no toys, no hair parentai, nothing." I stared at her in confusion, but the barking parent, I hear it every night. My neighbors hear it too. She handed me her card with a mental health resource number written on the back. "The house has been empty all this time, Miss Adams. There was no dog." That night, I sat awake until midnight, dreading what I might hear, but for the first time in 2 years, there was only silence. I smiled then. Parent actually smiled parent before realizing the truth. The following morning, I called the number Detective Ramirez had given me and scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist who specialized in auditory hallucinations. At my first session yesterday, Dr. Chen asked if I'd experienced any significant loss before moving to Maple Street. I told her about my childhood dog Charlie, who would bark incessantly whenever he was left alone, how my parents had given him away while I was at summer camp because they couldn't handle the noise complaints from neighbors, how I'd never gotten to say goodbye. Today, workers began clearing out Mr. Callahan's house. They found no evidence of pets, but in his basement, they discovered old speakers installed in the wall we shared parrot along with timer equipment and recordings of various dog sounds, programmed to play from midnight until dawn. Some people create elaborate deceptions that make others question their own reality. Others find that what they perceive as external torment might actually be the echo of their own unresolved pain. I am still not sure which explanation is more disturbing, Pernton, or which one I prefer to believe. Retri Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.